All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Survive and Protect. And today I'm going to answer a question on self defense, add some of my um, knowledge towards some questions here people want to know. I picked a area called the martial arts styles for self defense. And just let me look through some questions here and see which one kind of comes out at me and for me to answer here. Now this is a funny question. I mean, it's not funny. It's funny and it's not funny, but because it might not be funny to the person. It says, if someone starts a fight with me, how can I convince them I know martial arts when I don't actually know any martial arts? Well, I'm not gonna answer that, but I would just say quickly, in a nutshell, then just tell them, hey, you don't want to fight. You don't know how to fight. Maybe that'll be the best thing for you to do. But let's tackle something. Another question here. It says, what martial arts defense is best for street fights? In your opinion, what's the most realistic self-defense martial art? What is your favorite, most effective fighting martial art move? Could a woman who is a black belt in a martial art beat a large percentage of untrained men in a street fight? What is the defense? What is the best defense against the most common mixed martial arts? I'm kind of leaning towards wanting to answer that, but let me see what else is over here. What do you think is the most effective fighting style or martial art in an average street situation? A lot of people ask these questions about what styles this and what's the best style for the street. How effective is a throw punch in a street fight? Have you punched somebody in the throat? What is the one point in martial arts? And yeah, why do people just dismiss karate as a useless martial art? When I tell people I do karate, they say things like karate is useless. I could beat your A right now if I wanted to. Is it true that defense techniques against knife attack are useless? Is there a way to know if a random person passing by practices martial arts? As a grappler, how would you counter the Wing Chun machine gun punch as you go in for the takedown? Hmm. If every single citizen on Earth was allowed a pistol for self-defense, would everyone start killing each other? Killing each other like idiots, or think not twice but thrice about breaking the law? Should I answer that? If you are highly trained in martial arts, do you have an obligation to inform a would-be attacker of this? No, you don't. What is better? Hapkido, Taekwondo. That's what I'm saying. These things better for what? In what sense? In what term? How tough is a Navy SEAL in a street fight? Does muscular strength or technique matter? And I think I answered this question before, so I'm not gonna fool with that. The question is a slight bit different, but it's kind of similar to a question I answered before. Somebody at school wants to fight me, and I'm anxious because I've never had to fight before. I've had experience in martial arts and I'm more fit and athletic than my opponent. How do I handle the situation? Okay. Um, I might. Let me answer this question here. I don't know if this is from Rick Hamilton or if this is the person who answered this question. So I'm not quite sure. But I think it is. Yeah, he answered the question. So it doesn't show like who wrote the question here, but I'm going to answer this question. What is the best self-defense technique to learn and use for a 50-year-old person? I'm going to answer that question. And let me put my response down here. Just give me a second, guys. What I'm doing here on these questions that I'm responding to, I'm giving my answer, but my answer is for them to check out the show, to check out my YouTube channel, and they will see my answer. All right. So it says, I'm going to submit that real quick. So, what is the best self defense technique? I'm going to be specific to what they're asking as best as I can. What is the best self defense technique to learn and use for a 50-year-old person? All right. Well, I'm going to take some assumptions into play here. I'm taking it that this person who's asking this question is 50 or above. And then the other part of this thing is saying the best self-defense technique. So that would suggest to me when I hear that word, the best self-defense technique to learn and use, it's seeming like you're limiting yourself to just one thing to do, one action to do and use for a 50-year-old person. So if you're like 50 or above, um, first of all, people who are 50 years old or people who are going to become 50 pretty soon, you are probably in better health and shape than maybe your parents' generation and your grandparents and back because things get better because of technology and the way things new advances on things. So you're going to be probably more healthier than your parents and your parents' parents and your parents. That's one thing, but that's kind of a side note. But now back to the question, what is the best self-defense technique to learn and use? Well, I wouldn't suggest, number one, that you learn a technique. And secondly, I would suggest that you get out the mindset of even wanting to know a technique, like one thing you can do. Because when it comes to protecting yourself, here are the factors. You don't know how a person is going to attack you. You don't know from what angle they're going to do it in. You don't know if they have any knowledge. You don't know if they have some knowledge. You don't know if they're trained or untrained. So you don't know these things. And so you can't prepare for an attack by a certain technique. All right. What I suggest is you consider principles because principles always remain. Principles stand no matter how old you get, no matter what the skill level anybody is, certain principles will always be in play, and they never diminish. So, what do I mean by that? For instance, a principle you can look at is controlling distance. All right, that's a principle. It's not a technique. Now, how you would do it, how you would control the distance, that would be more or less for you to learn and understand how to control the distance. But it's to get real basic and to get real simple, and then you can kind of build from that. There's only like so much ways a person can close a distance on you, whether before a fight happens and an argument might ensue first, a person can simply walk up to you. That's how they can bring, you might have been at a distance from them. They can just simply close the distance by walking up to you. All right. Another way is you can, the distance can be closed by you walking up to them. So you can close the distance that way. Another way a person can get close to you is if you're not paying attention and somebody's hiding somewhere and they're waiting for you to get close enough so when they jump out, they close the distance on you. So those are just three main, I wouldn't say the only ways per se, because then you got the aspect of if you have to protect yourself. And in this sense, I'm looking at the question where you're saying what is the best self-defense. So I'm going to look at it in the sense of what I just explained to you, but then in the sense of if you have to fight then. So like I said, don't worry about techniques because your mind doesn't work like that when you actually fight. Your mind is not going to search for, okay, what this technique is this or this technique for that. There's something else which is probably for another question another day where that might be in play, but that's not going to be for this question here. So what I suggest more is that you consider principles. All right, the principles of, like I said, learning how to close the distance, the principles of when you're in a real fight situation, the truth be told, you need to end the fight as quick as possible. I mean, and there's several reasons because the longer you continue fighting somebody, the worse it can possibly, not saying it will, but it can possibly get worse for you because if you're not in the best of shape, you can probably get tired, and the other person might have a level of endurance that they'll last a little bit longer, fighting longer. So that's one reason. Of course, the age, if you're fighting somebody younger than you, which is not always the truth, but it can happen. Somebody younger might have a little bit more endurance than you. Speed doesn't matter. You just try to be as fast as you can. But speed has I don't want to say 100% doesn't matter, but in a fight, speed has some benefits, but there's also some other things involved as well. And so, like I said again, um, learning how to close the distance, understanding that you got to end fights fast as you possibly can. Also having like a more of a destruction mindset as opposed to just wanting to hurt somebody because you don't know how serious the person is wanting to hurt you. So on top of ending things quickly, you got to learn how to know what to attack, how to attack to make the person stop or to stop the fight as fast as you possibly can. So there is no best self-defense move or technique to learn. It's better that you learn principles and then you understand how a body works. Understand what parts of the body is easier to manipulate. All right. And pretty much what you can manipulate is the parts that are easily movable. Okay. The neck, like the head neck area, the head neck combination, you can turn people's head. It's real, even on a big heavy person, you can kind of manipulate their head and neck area. You can manipulate their arms, their elbows, shoulders, their hips to a degree, their knees, their ankles, their feet, their legs, places where things bend, their wrists, their fingers, like their torso body is hard to deal with. Their center, their chest and stomach, you can't turn and twist that. Although you can twist the skin, but you got to be real good at knowing where to twist that and pinch and bend and all that stuff. So the areas of the body where you can actually maneuver, it's easier. You can maneuver their elbows. You can maneuver their hands and wrists and fingers. You can do the toes as well, which not many people will attack toes unless they're barefooted and you are, you're kind of on the ground or even standing up. Somebody throws a kick and you catch it or something like that. And if they don't have any shoes on, you can deal with the toe because then you can bend toes. It's real easy to do that. It's real easy to turn people's heads and move it in a sense of, when I say real easy in regards to the head and neck, you can move a big person or a little person. You can twist them and twist their head, although they'll be moving around to try to get out of what you're doing. Now that part of it, them moving around, you got to deal with their sporadic movement. But once you grab it and you can get a hold of it long enough, you can manipulate the neck. You can twist the person's head and stuff like that. So I would suggest you focus more on how a person's body works. Maybe you can get with somebody and just lightly practice, and you can practice on yourself. You can just, like I'm doing now with my fingers. Those are things, even on a big person, you can manipulate a 300 pound, 400 pound, 250, 280 pound person's fingers. If you get a hold of their arms long enough to do it, you can grab fingers and manipulate it. You can grab their wrists. But what you're going to have to deal with is a lot of movement. So I wouldn't suggest you go for stuff like that unless you're pretty good at it, because when a person is still fresh, as far as their energy levels, it's going to be hard to do a lot of that grabbing unless you know what you're doing. But once you start breaking them down physically and they're starting to get worn out, then it's going to be easier for you to grab body parts and manipulate them, break them, twist them, or whatever. All right. So don't focus on the best self defense technique. Focus on learning body mechanics, how a person moves, what you can do with certain parts of their body, how you can move certain parts of their body easier than other parts. All right. Um, and again, like I said in other questions, have a mindset of what I call a holistic mindset when it comes to fighting. Be able to deal with situations in any position that you're in. Even if you got to sit down and just visualize an attack in a chair, how can you maneuver and fight while you're sitting in the actual chair and somebody's punching you or they're grabbing you and you're up in the chair? Some people might tackle and you might be laid over. How do you learn how to deal with that? Actually fighting in the chair, because there are some limitations. You couldn't do too much punching and kicking. You got to do more um, close quarter strikes and things of that sort, right? And so that's the mindset I suggest you have. Okay. So once again, I appreciate you guys for checking out Survive and Protect. And that's my response to the question: what is the best self-defense technique to learn and use for a 50-year-old? All right. Survive and Protect. I'm out. Peace.